Hey, this is Tim from the editing room. Just saying, the audio in the first chapter is going to be a little bit shagarst because I did a big stupid. I forgot to plug my fucking mic in, which is great. So, so I'm very sorry about the poor audio quality. I fixed the issue for the next two chapters. By which I mean I plugged my fucking mic in. Like what a smart person would do. So yeah, I apologize for the audio issues, but I hope that you all enjoy the video. Thank you.
Rebecca and the Freak. Epilogue. A collection of short stories. Story 1. What are you? Okay, let me see if I've got this right, yeah? Rebecca and Freakshow were sat at a messy table in a kitchen within a small roadhouse belonging to a close friend of Rebecca's, who was sat across from them nursing her second cup of coffee. The woman's name was Ellie Harrison. She worked at the same diner as Rebecca, Terry's fast food. However, Ellie worked an overnight security shift from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., keeping people out and stopping them from stealing anything. Because Ellie spent most nights awake, watching security cameras and doing patrols of the building, she was often extremely tired come morning, and so she slept through most of the day, which was where Rebecca and Freakshow had found her. Upon their arrival, Ellie was deep within her slumber before being rudely awoken by the pair knocking on her front door. She answered in a groggy state, still in her pajamas, which was comprised of nothing but an oversized dark grey Metallica t-shirt that thankfully covered her nether regions. She at first did not believe what Rebecca was telling her, that the man next to her was a shape-shifting demon she'd befriended the night before. Ellie was ready to curse out Rebecca and close the door on her, when suddenly, to her shock, the man with Rebecca suddenly morphed into a near-identical mirror of her. It was then that Ellie realized this wasn't a slightly too late Halloween prank. She then decided to let the pair in and told them to wait for her in the kitchen while she got dressed. She now sat ahead of them, clad in a pair of black sweatpants that were slightly too short for her legs, along with her oversized band shirt, while also wearing a black choker around her neck, which confused Freakshow slightly. Not only was the fashion new and alien to them, but why of all things would she choose to wear that on this occasion? That, she began, after taking a sip of her coffee, is a demon who you broke into the house of because Brad made you do some stupid dare to steal something from said house. Then they tried to eat you because you tried to steal from them, but then you two became like best mates because you explained to them that you were being forced to do it. Then yous both pranked Brad and his goods back, and now you sat here in front of me for what? Ellie exposited in a long ramble, finishing with a large gulp of coffee that emptied her cup, which she immediately refilled from a pot she had made before sitting down. Yeah, that's basically what happened, Rebecca said, slightly awkward. You make it sound like it's strange, Freakshow said towards Ellie, who just looked back with tired eyes. It is super strange, bruv. First you're trying to kill her, now you're like best mates or whatever. Freakshow blinked at her brash tone, surprised by her bizarre modern words. I suppose it is a tad strange. Freakshow mumbled while looking away towards the living room, which was a complete mess, with empty pizza and takeout boxes littering the floor, as well as crushed cans of what were once energy drinks. There is a reason we're here, Rebecca stated while nudging Freakshow to get their attention away from the cluttered home space. Yes, quite, Freakshow said as they turned back to face Ellie. Oh, please. Enlighten me, she said with a yawn. Rebecca and Freakshow both exchanged looks before silently agreeing on who would explain everything. You see, Freakshow began, I am a demonic creature known as an Itsuzuna. We are a highly skilled race of shapeshifters from a realm beneath your own called the Under-Earth. However, you might know it better as Hell. Freakshow spoke calm and with purpose, as if what they were saying didn't sound completely insane. So, Ellie said after a sip of her coffee. If hell is real, does that mean, like, Satan is real too? Rebecca saw Freakshow tense up at the question. They seemed very uncomfortable by the subject. However, Ellie didn't seem to pick up on this, as she was not yet privy to their mannerisms. Yes, they stuttered, with a shaken breath. He is very real. Metal. Ellie said, flashing a smirk, before downing her third cup of coffee. If we could get back on topic, please? Rebecca cut in before any more awkwardness could occur. Ellie nodded and motioned with her hand for Rebecca to keep talking. Today, Freakshow was telling me about all their powers and stuff. Like how they can make portals. I actually walked through one. It was really awesome. Make fire come out of their fingertips. And they even have an infinite universe inside their pocket. Wait, they have hammer space? Ellie suddenly interrupted, name-dropping a trope she knew from her extensive knowledge of comic books and cartoons. Yeah. Anyway, Rebecca continued. They were telling me how their kind, Itazuna. Freakshow corrected. Thanks. The Itazuna are the only shapeshifters that can change sex. Ellie raised an eyebrow to this. And how they don't use gendered pronouns like he or she, so I told them that makes them gender fluid and non-binary, but obviously they don't know what that means because they've been hibernating for the past 100 years, and you couldn't properly explain it to them, so you came to me because I'm trans, and therefore I know everything about gender identity, right? Ellie interrupted with a mocking tone, causing Rebecca to become flustered. No, Ellie suddenly burst out laughing, yet again cutting off Rebecca. Chill out, Bex, I'm just messing with you. The two friends shared a short laugh while Freakshow just sat in confusion. Pardon my ignorance, but what does trans mean? They spoke amidst the laughter of the two women, which caused Ellie to promptly stop laughing upon hearing what Freakshow had said. She glanced at her pot of coffee and lethargically rose from her seat and walked over to the fridge before opening it. Gonna need to wake up more for this, she said, pulling a canned energy drink from out of the fridge. She cracked it open and proceeded to chug half the can in a series of large gulps. She then sat back down in her chair with a belch before continuing. I'm transgender, Freakshow, Ellie said, with a similar purposeful tone as they had used earlier. It means I was born in the body of a man, but I'm actually a woman. And so I do things to appear more feminine, more like my real self. Like wearing makeup, growing my hair out, and I'm also trying to save up some cash so I can get medicine to help me grow tits, she said, patting her flat chest. She felt a slight sense of unease, explaining all this to someone who was basically a stranger to her, especially one as old-fashioned looking as Freakshow, who was still clad in their Victorian attire. However, they were listening intently to every word she said, and had a look on their face of complete understanding. I see, Freakshow said after a moment of thought. You know, if you want, I'm sure I could find you a spell or a potion that could aid you in your transformation. Ellie was taken aback by this, not just because they outright said they could use magic on her, but that they actually understood and comprehended what she'd said, and even wanted to help her in her goal. No thanks, Ellie said after thinking for a bit. I appreciate the offer, but I don't want you accidentally turning me into a frog, yeah? Ellie joked, flashing a smile and a laugh after she did so. Rebecca also began to laugh. Freakshow then just looked at the two of them and couldn't help but start laughing with them. Oh, I see. That was a joke. Very good. They said with a hearty belly laugh. Alright, Demon Man, Ellie said after the laughter had ended. Let's get your identity sorted, yeah?
Story 2. Moving. Freakshow stood on the front porch of a quaint home in the middle of a quiet neighborhood. This was the childhood home of their close friend Rebecca Glass, who was staying with her mother due to an unfortunate event that Freakshow wanted to apologize for. It had been around 2 weeks since the pair had met, and Rebecca had been taking time off work to help Freakshow learn about the modern human world. And after teaching them many new things, and even finding out that they were fascinated by television, she felt it was safe to leave them alone while she went back to work so she could keep paying rent. All was well until Freakshow decided they wanted something to eat while watching Doctor Who. During Rebecca's time off, one of the modern things she had shown Freakshow were the new foods that they had never tried before, and one that they were especially fond of was the grilled cheese sandwich, a simple dish that they found utterly exquisite. Freakshow selected the ingredients they would need to make their meal, as well as some extra flourishes to make it taste even better, and they had decided that they would use some of their fire magic to aid in the cooking process. However, it all went wrong when they turned the gas stove on. Rebecca got a phone call from a panicked neighbour, saying her apartment had burst into flames. She rushed back home to an ashamed Freakshow, who flatly told her it was their fault, and that they were deeply sorry. However, sorries couldn't fix what happened next. Rebecca was evicted from her apartment and moved back in with her mother, and Freakshow had gotten the address from her friend Ellie and had come to the house to apologise to her. They'd already made it right with the owners of the apartment complex by pulling out a fat stack of cash from their Hammerspace pocket to pay off the damages. They stood outside the door, nervous. They didn't understand or know this feeling, as it had been many decades since they'd felt anything like it. Okay, they sighed to themselves. What am I even meant to say to her? They began to pace around the porch. Hey, human friend, so sorry I basically made you homeless. Let's be friends again! They acted out themselves. Oh, no. Blimey, it really has been a long time since I've had a friend. They lamented to themselves, understanding just how out of their depths they really were. Freakshow collected themselves with a deep breath. They swallowed the fear in their throat and knocked on the door. They heard shuffling beyond the door as someone approached. The door then opened and Freakshow was met with the sight of a woman who looked remarkably like Rebecca. However, she was older and had short greying hair and rounded glasses framing her eyes, as well as having a much shorter stature than Rebecca. After a second of looking, Freakshow realised this must have been Rebecca's mother, Margaret Glass. Oh, hello. Can I help you? Margaret seemed surprised by the presence of Freakshow at her door, which was understandable due to their still slightly bizarre attire. With the help of Ellie, gone was Freakshow's old Victorian clothes, and they were now wearing a more modern outfit, with jeans and a modest purple blazer, alongside brown leather dress shoes and leather purple gloves. The top hat remained atop their head, which Rebecca had recently learned was physically attached to their head due to them angering a sorceress. And rounding out their new look was a pair of round glasses with red tinted lenses. These came directly from Ellie's wardrobe, which she let them have because she never wears them. Blue is much more my colour, she said before letting Freakshow keep them. Hello, I'm, Frank. I'm a friend of Rebecca's, and... Freakshow began to speak, but was interrupted by Margaret. Oh yes, come on in, she's just upstairs. Can I get you anything, Frank? Margaret smiled warmly at the towering Freakshow. She was wearing a light blue turtleneck, along with simple grey jeans and a simple pair of trainers. Freakshow caught the faint scent of bleach off her frame, perhaps suggesting she had been cleaning before they arrived. Oh, no, I don't want to be a bother, I'm just here to talk to her. Margaret nodded and walked into what Freakshow assumed to be the kitchen to return to cleaning. Freakshow walked up the stairs and followed Rebecca's now familiar scent in order to find her. The scent led them to a door towards the end of the hall. The door had an old-looking sign hanging from it. The sign was wooden and made to look like a stop sign, with the words "Keep Out" in white painted letters. The sign looked old, and there were small imperfections in the paint that made Freakshow think it might have been homemade. They knocked on the door. From inside they could hear bed springs creaking and popping, followed by the sounds of soft padding steps on creaking floorboards. The door swung open and a very tired-looking Rebecca peered out from the dark room. She was wearing what she had told Freakshow were her depression pajamas, which consisted of an ill-fitting grey tank top, black pajama shorts, and red and green striped fluffy socks. What do you want, Freakshow? Rebecca sighed. Her hair was messy and there were thick bags under her eyes. To say she looked a mess would be an understatement. Hello, Rebecca. How are you? Freakshow flashed a weak smile, which Rebecca stared back at with tired eyes. You burned down my apartment and got me evicted. How the fuck do you think I'm feeling? Rebecca spat before slamming the door in Freakshow's face, which was basically how they expected her to respond. And they didn't blame her at all for being angry at them. They had basically uprooted her entire life and destroyed the place she called home. Freakshow portaled into the room after her, which gave them a clear look at it. Despite the blinds being closed, Freakshow's enhanced vision allowed them to see the room as if it was full of sunlight. From looking around, they could tell this was Rebecca's childhood bedroom, with a single bed in the corner of the room, which had a noticeable depression in its middle, letting Freakshow know she had been either laying or sitting on the bed before they arrived. Sitting by the pillow was a dusty, beat-up plush of a bumblebee. It looked like it had once been thick and squishy, but had been squashed over many years of tight cuddles. The walls had some shelves on them, with trinkets and old toys. Freakshow took note of a small house built of multicoloured plastic bricks. Something about its shape and build was appealing to the demon. They looked around more and saw a half-open closet with a blue and white hoodie half-hung on one of the doors. The back of the hoodie had a design showing a theme park with large red letters above it. However, Freakshow could only make out the first half of the lettering. It said. They had no idea what it could possibly mean, but did not question it. They had more pressing matters to deal with. Rebecca had now plopped herself back into the depression on her bed with a creak of old bed springs. She knew Freakshow was in the room but chose to ignore them, instead scrolling aimlessly on her phone. Rebecca, listen to me. Freakshow began, breaking Rebecca's focus from her screen. She looked up at them with an annoyed look plastered across her face. You have every right to be mad at me, but I've been working on a little something over the past few days to make it up to you. If you come with me, I promise it'll be worth your time. They stretched out a hand and smiled warmly, which seemed to finally soften Rebecca's hard exterior. Let me get changed. She sighed, getting up and walking to a chair with a duffel bag resting on top of it. She started taking off her tank top and Freakshow realized what was happening. Sorry, I'll go. They said with a flush of grey to their cheeks before leaving the room through the door. Mrs. Glass, I think I'll have that cuppa now. Rebecca was standing somewhere outside. She wasn't sure where. After she'd gotten dressed, Freakshow opened a portal somewhere and asked her to close her eyes. Freakshow, I swear to God, if this is some kind of prank, I will kill you. Rebecca sneered, beginning to get slightly annoyed by the situation. I accept those terms, Freakshow said. You can open your eyes now. Rebecca opened her eyes and saw in front of her a very familiar and imposing sight. Is this the Hellview House? She questioned, staring up at the large Victorian building, which looked different than she remembered. In fact, it looked new? That's right, Freakshow said with pride. I had help from an old friend to completely refurbish the place, top to bottom, good as new! Freakshow beamed with a wide-mouthed grin full of their razor-sharp teeth. Okay, Rebecca started. But why are you telling me this? Freakshow's smile widened as they grabbed Rebecca's hand and began to run towards the freshly cut lawn, dragging her behind them. Because this will be your new home! Rebecca and Freakshow entered into the main hall of the house. The last time Rebecca had seen it, it was completely falling apart, with the wallpaper peeling, wood rotting, and dust covering everything. But now it looked as though it had never been abandoned. The wood panels on the walls had been replaced with shiny new dark oak, topped with royal blue wallpaper stretching towards the ceiling. The floor was a lighter oak, with a large rug in the center of the main hall. "Freak show," Rebecca said, stunned by the beauty of the rebuilt home. "You fixed this whole place? Just for me? And only in a few days?" She looked up at her new friend, shocked they did something so amazing just to make her happy. "Well, of course," they said, surprisingly nonchalant. "It was the least I could do after ruining your old home." Rebecca stood in shock. This was more than the least they could do. This was huge, almost overwhelming. "Freak show, I... She rushed over and hugged them. Their body was so thin, her arms wrapped back around and touched her own. Thank you so much." She was nearly sobbing into their purple blazer. Freakshow hugged back and stroked her soft hair. "It's okay. No need to thank me." The two friends stood embraced for a short while, before Freakshow suddenly said, "Well, I best be going. Good luck with the move." They suddenly let her go and walked out of the house. "Wait, where are you going?" Rebecca followed and called out to them. Freakshow turned around while on the large porch. "Well, this is your home now. I'm giving it to you to live in, and I'm going to find somewhere else to live." Rebecca was taken aback by this. "What? No, Freakshow, this is your home too. You literally own this place. And I don't want to be alone in this giant house," Rebecca said, causing Freakshow's brow to furrow in confusion. You want me here? With you? After I got you booted from your old place, you still..." They stepped forward. You still want to be my friend?" Rebecca smiled up at the demon. "Well, yeah, you big dope." She lightly punched their shoulder. "I probably shouldn't have left you on your own anyway. You still have so much to learn. And besides, you gave me all this. How could I not want you around?" Freakshow's lip began to quiver slightly, and Rebecca could see tears beginning to well in the corners of their eyes. Tears which seemed to have steam coming off them as they made contact with the chilly November air. Before Rebecca could ask if they were okay, she was suddenly scooped up into a massive bear hug by Freakshow, which lifted her off the ground, leaving her feet dangling as Freakshow held her tight. "You..." Freakshow sobbed, near scalding tears running down their pale face, with a huge smile on display. "You are truly a good person, and I'm so very glad to call you my friend." Rebecca giggled at this. "Thanks, but could you please put me down? It's kinda hard to breathe." Freakshow gently set her down and wiped away their tears with the handkerchief from their breast pocket. They held out a hand for Rebecca, and she took it, and the pair then walked together into their new home. Story 3. Opening Up. "Okay, that should be all of it," Rebecca said with a sigh as she set down the last box of her belongings salvaged from her apartment and childhood home. Freakshow waved at the moving van as it pulled away from the house. They were wearing a more casual fit than usual, still with the jeans, but now with black sneakers and a white t-shirt under a purple hoodie, and their hat was morphed into a comfortable beanie. They also were not wearing their red glasses, but they were folded up and hanging around the neck of their t-shirt. Freakshow had spent the day helping Rebecca move her stuff into her new home. It was mostly clothes and other personal belongings. However, since the house was much larger than her cramped apartment, Freakshow allowed her to bring some extra things from her childhood home. Most of the boxes were either from her childhood bedroom or the attic of the old home. "Goodness," Freakshow said, pretending to wipe sweat from their brow, despite the fact they didn't sweat at all. "I never knew one human could have so much... stuff." Freakshow surveyed the 15 or so boxes of various sizes Rebecca had moved into the house. "Yeah," Rebecca sighed, rubbing the back of her head. "Why don't we take a little break? I'll put the kettle on," she said, gesturing to the kitchen, which, much like the rest of the house, had been fully refurbished and decked out with modern amenities. "Fantastic idea, Rebecca," Freakshow smiled. "I'll have a look through some of this stuff to see what could be easily moved." Rebecca approved of this and walked to the kitchen. As Freakshow began to mull over the items, they heard Rebecca filling up the kettle and grabbing 2 cups from a cupboard. After a short couple of minutes of filing through a few boxes, Freakshow came to one of the boxes from the attic of Rebecca's childhood home. It was small and dusty, with a few dents and tears on its surface. Through the opening of the box, they could see what seemed to be an old slip of paper. They opened the box and pulled it out, surprised to see it was piano sheet music. I didn't know Rebecca played piano. Freakshow thought, looking over the music. The paper was old and yellowing ever so slightly, with curled edges and a coffee ring stain near the bottom. They trained their gaze to the top of the slip and read the title of the song. Golden Brown by the Stranglers, it said. Freakshow was intrigued by the title and the name of the group who made it. They moved past a few boxes and went into a room to the right of the front door. This was the new living room, which had a large sofa with a coffee table in front of it in the center of the room. In the corner was a storage unit with a large flat-screen TV sat atop it, which Rebecca absolutely loved. And in the left back corner of the room was a standing piano, one of the things from the original house that had been fixed up and given a fresh coat of paint. Freakshow opened the lid of the piano and flipped down the shelf for the music sheet. They pulled out a stool and read through the notes before they began to tickle the ivories. They were immediately enamored by the melody. The flow of the song greatly appealed to them. As they played, they noticed that there were lyrics written under the notes, which they began to sing along to. Golden brown, fine a temptress, through the ages she's heading west. Strange words, they thought, but before they could continue to play, Rebecca suddenly ran into the room. "Where did you find that?" she said with a raised tone that surprised Freakshow out of playing. She rushed over and snatched the sheet music off the piano. Freakshow could not discern the emotion she was expressing. They couldn't tell if she was angry, sad, upset, or all of the above. I'm sorry, I didn't realize it was anything important," they stammered out, seeing the unknown emotion fade from her face and being replaced with a saddened expression. No, it's fine, it's just... She hesitated, her breaths becoming ragged from emotion. It belonged to my dad. Freakshow seemed surprised by this. They may not have known Rebecca all that long, but she'd never brought up a father in all the little talks they'd had. She talked quite a bit about her mother and sister, but never her father. Rebecca continued. It was his favorite song. He printed it from his work computer and immediately started learning how to play it. Oh, he was amazing at the piano, and he had such a wonderful singing voice. He'd sometimes sing the song to me to help me sleep when I was young. Rebecca had a weary smile on her face as she spoke, and Freakshow could sense this story didn't have a happy ending. He was my best friend. I loved him more than anything, but... She hesitated again, tears starting to well in her eyes. When I was 14, he had a heart attack, and... She didn't need to finish. Freakshow understood what she was saying. They stood up from the stool and approached her. Oh, Rebecca. I'm so sorry. They wrapped their arms around her in a hug, which she accepted. She continued her story. After he died, everything changed. Mum started working more. Evelyn spent more time with her boyfriend than at home, and I had exams at school. I was stressed and depressed, and I felt like I didn't have anyone to talk to, and I did the only thing I felt I could to calm me down. I ate my feelings. Freakshow was at first confused by the term, but it soon clicked in their mind what she meant. You ate because it brought you comfort, they said, which Rebecca confirmed through tears. It always helped me when I was upset as a kid. But my dad would always calm me down before it got bad. But when he died, I couldn't control it. And it led to all this. She said, pulling away from Freakshow, and pinched the side of her stomach. The pieces were beginning to fall into place in Freakshow's mind. Some things were beginning to make more sense. And you were still in school, correct? Rebecca nodded. Teens. She weakly chuckled through her tears. They're dicks. They didn't care I'd been through something terrible. They just saw I was bigger, and she buried her face in her hands and began to break down. Freakshow hugged Rebecca again and let her weep in their arms. After a short while, the warmth of their body next to hers began to calm her down, and she eventually pulled back and wiped away her tears. Jesus, I'm sorry. I'm such a mess. She weakly chuckled again. Freakshow pulled out a handkerchief from their hammerspace pocket and handed it to Rebecca. No need to apologize, Rebecca. I had no idea you'd lost so much, and you have my deepest sympathies. They said with a somber tone. Having lived such a long life, Freakshow knew the sting of loss, and they wanted to help their friend however they could. Rebecca fixed herself up and thanked them, seeming back to her old self, if a little shaken. Freakshow glanced down at the sheet music. Would you like me to put this away? They said, gesturing to the paper. Rebecca looked down at the music and stared at it for a while, thinking of what to do. Actually, she finally said, handing Freakshow the sheet music. Could you play it again? Freakshow didn't hesitate. They smiled warmly and brought the sheet back to the piano. They sat down and prepared to play. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. They again began to play the fascinating melody, filling the house with spectacular sound. When they reached the part of the song where the lyrics began, they heard something they never expected to hear from behind them. Golden brown, texture like sun, lays me down with my mind, she runs throughout the night, no need to fight, never a frown with golden brown. To their surprise, Rebecca had begun to sing along with the music, and while she sounded timid and nervous, Freakshow couldn't deny she had a beautiful voice and sang perfectly in time with the song, which made sense, of course. She knew the melody very well. As they played, she continued to sing, and as she did, her fear went away and her singing became more confident and clearer, and Freakshow could not help but feel, with every passing second, that her voice became more and more angelic. As they reached the end of the song, Rebecca was in full swing of the music. Her fear was gone and she had a huge smile on her face, and as the end drew closer, Freakshow decided to join in with the singing. Never a frown with golden brown, never a frown with golden brown, never a frown with golden brown. When the music had ended, Rebecca and Freakshow stood for a while in stunned silence, for the moment they had shared together was almost magical. After a long while of staring silently at one another, Rebecca suddenly burst out laughing, which caused Freakshow to do the same. They got up from the stool and they hugged yet again. Okay, Rebecca said. How about we get that tea and get back to work?